All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful thesis that's been making the rounds in the crypto space. This idea that XRP could create millionaires, not over years, but, well, maybe even overnight. So, what's the actual argument behind a claim that huge? Let's dig into the mechanics of it.
It really all kicks off with this feeling, right? This is a direct quote from the source material, and it kind of hits home. It's that gut feeling that with XRP, something is just different. That it's not just playing the same game as everything else. The whole thesis we're exploring today is really an attempt to put logic behind that intuition.
So, first up, the intuitive premise. This is the absolute core belief. And the argument is pretty simple. If you're just staring at XRP's price chart day in and day out, you are completely missing the bigger picture. According to this thesis, XRP is playing a totally different game.
And this, right here, is the key. The whole argument is that XRP's value isn't supposed to be driven by the usual retail hype, the moon memes and all that. It's about its potential role in a massive, behind-the-scenes overhaul of our global financial plumbing.
And check this out. This table really breaks down the two completely different worlds we're talking about. On the left, you've got your normal crypto cycle. It's loud, it's all over social media, it's driven by hype and retail speculation. But the thesis claims XRP is on the path to the right, an institutional cycle that's quiet, it's private, and it's built on boring stuff like regulation and compliance.
Which, of course, brings us to our second point, the legacy system's flaw. See, to get why a new solution might be so valuable, you first have to understand the problem it's designed to solve. And this whole thesis is built on the idea that our current financial system is, well, fundamentally broken.
And here is all that friction. The source points to systems like SWIFT. First off, it's slow. We're talking days to settle, not seconds. It's message-based, which means it's just sending promises of money, not the actual money itself. That creates all kinds of risk. You get these layers and layers of fees, and the whole thing is running on tech from the 1970s.
So, you've got this massive conflict, right? The modern global economy is basically a bullet train that needs to move value instantly, in real time. But the tracks it's running on, these old financial rails, are basically crumbling. They're not an asset anymore. They're a huge liability that's slowing everything down.
So, if that's the problem, what's the supposed solution? Well, that brings us to part 3, XRP's institutional design. The source claims that XRP was built from the ground up to be the institutional fix for this broken system, but it argues that its real adoption process is completely misunderstood by pretty much everyone.
Now, this is a really critical piece of the puzzle. The argument is that the real progress isn't happening on Twitter or in some public forum. No, it's happening in boardrooms, through quiet, closed-door negotiations with the very institutions that run the entire global economy. So instead of watching price charts, the source says the real signals are these quiet clues. Things like new regulatory frameworks getting passed, banks running pilot programs, these quiet software integrations happening in the background. The thesis frames these as little breadcrumbs, all leading to something much, much bigger.
And this is where it all comes together in what the thesis calls the perfect storm scenario. You've got these three huge forces all converging at once. First, you've got regulation finally providing the clarity for big institutions to make a move. Second, the technology is built and ready to go. And third, there's this undeniable global pressure for a better, faster system. The core idea is that these three things are about to collide.
Okay, so this is it. This brings us to part 4, the absolute heart of this entire thesis, the switch flip. The theory argues this isn't about some slow, gradual climb in price. It's about a single, dramatic event, the moment the new system just gets turned on.
So, what does that flip even look like? Well, the source is super specific about this, and it's probably not what you're thinking. First things first, the thesis completely throws out the idea of a slow, steady, organic price increase.
Nope. Instead, it suggests that change will be sudden, it'll be violent, and it will happen almost all at once.
And this is the engine behind it all, a repricing event. The idea is that once the system goes live, there will be this immediate, overwhelming demand for XRP to be used as a utility for liquidity. And that demand shock forces the price to just snap to a new equilibrium, almost instantly. It doesn't climb, it snaps. And this domino metaphor from the source just explains it perfectly. Think about it. The global banking system is so interconnected. Once one major player,
That first domino adopts the new system, the others can't afford to wait. They're forced to follow immediately, just to stay in the game. The dominoes don't wobble, they cascade instantly.
So okay, if this event is a sudden snap, how on earth would you prepare for it? That leads us to the final part. Part 5, positioning. And this part of the theory isn't about charts or market analysis, it's all about the mindset you need before that snap ever happens.
So the big takeaway here, at least according to this theory, isn't about being a genius trader or trying to time the market perfectly. Not at all. The real challenge is having the conviction to get into position and just wait. To wait through those long, quiet, boring periods and see them as the setup for the main event.
And this slide just lays it out so clearly. On one side, you have the impatient mindset. This person sees the price going sideways for months and gets bored or gets scared by some bad news and eventually sells. But the positioned mindset, according to the source, sees that exact same quiet period and understands this is the final stage. This person connects the dots on all those quiet clues we talked about.
I mean, this quote really says it all, doesn't it? The system, as described in this thesis, isn't built to reward the day traders or the people looking for a quick flip. It's designed from the ground up to reward those who understood the long-term utility case and got into position long before that utility was ever actually turned on.
And so we end on the big question posed by the source material itself. It reframes this whole thing not just as a financial bet, but as a question of conviction in a world that's changing incredibly fast. So the question is, are you positioned for the moment, or will you end up watching it from the outside?
Stay ahead in the crypto market. Subscribe now for the latest global news and updates.